Hey everybody, it's Rachel from Rachel is Knitting, and in today's video I'll be showing you how to log an item from your yarn collection into the Ravelry stash feature. Before we get started, I do want to forewarn you that this video does show screen recordings of using the Ravelry platform, so if Ravelry causes harm to you, please click out of this video and I'll see you next time. Alright, here we are on the Ravelry homepage. Today's tip may be a little different than the functionality you're used to with Ravelry, and I think that it is just an invaluable tool the more and more that I use it. So, in order to access the stash feature of Ravelry, take your mouse to the upper right hand corner and hover over the My Notebook option. You'll then drag your mouse down to the stash feature and click on it. This brings up your logged stash. Very likely yours will look differently than mine because what we're seeing on the screen now are skeins that I personally have in my own yarn collection, and likely your yarn collection looks different. So let's say you're ready to add a new item to your Ravelry stash feature. Bring your mouse to the left-hand side and click on the Add to Stash button. This brings you to a new window where you can input some information about the yarn you're logging to assist Ravelry's functionality in narrowing down some need-to-know information. So here at the top, you'll see that you can say where this yarn was purchased, selecting from a bulleted list of options, including local yarn store, online store, chain store, etc. If I change from local yarn store to online store, you can see that the items for information input below change. This is just again to help Ravelry intuitively lead you in the direction you need to go when inputting different pieces of information about this yarn. So let's go ahead and move down to these items below. The name of stashed yarn category refers to the base. So let's say I am stashing a base that is called Merino DK from the yarn company Long Dog Yarn. I can there go to optional information like the store name and the URL, but none of those items are going to appear on the yarn page. Click continue and we're brought up to a page where Ravelry has intuitively narrowed down some options that it thinks you may have been referring to. This will not always come up. Sometimes if you're using a more obscure yarn or a yarn that just hasn't been logged by other Ravelry users, you may have to click continue without choosing one. But since I do have these options to select from, I'll go ahead and click this Merino DK option because that's what I'm talking about, and click choose this yarn. This now brings me to the yarn page. This is essentially the name tag for the yarn or the catalog tag for the yarn where I can input all of the relevant information I want to include. There's an option to add photos, which you can use by uploading a screenshot of the yarn from the yarn website or a photo you take yourself. You'll then go to the colorway option and input the colorway name. When selecting the colorway drop-down menu, I'll see a list of all the colorways that have already been logged in this base from this company on Ravelry. Let's say that I'm using a colorway that's already there. All I would have to do is select that colorway, in this case Ursula, and I'll do that by clicking on it. That will populate the colorway field with that colorway name. If the colorway you're using is not already present in the drop-down menu, you can simply type it out. Then, next to the colorway name, you can select the closest color. I thought that this was an irrelevant thing to select because if I already had the colorway name, why do I need to select the closest color? But I highly recommend that you do this step. I know that Ursula is purple, so I'll go ahead and select purple from the drop-down menu. Then, under color attributes, if you click select, you can check off the different items that help describe your yarn. So I'll go ahead and select variegated and semi-solid just based on what I know of this yarn. And then I'll scroll down and I'll input the number of skeins I have. Let's say I have 3 skeins. It will automatically input the grams and the yardage for that yarn. Now, again, going back to the previous step, if you're using a yarn that is not pre-populated in Ravelry, you may have to manually enter the weight, the yardage, and the grams, and then when you enter your total skeins, it will populate that math for you. You just may have to give it the first figures to work with. You can then add information on where it was purchased, the date of purchase, how much you paid for it, the dye lot, any relevant tags you'd like to use for your own reference, and then you can put where it's stored in, as well as any notes you'd like to add to the bottom of the yarn card. Once you're done, click Save Stash, and you'll see that the completed yarn card is all set and ready to go. But what does this look like in your stash in general? You can either locate this by going to the top left-hand corner and clicking on Stash, or again by going to the top right-hand corner, hovering over My Notebook, and clicking on Stash. We're at my stash page and you can see my stash sorted by the date added. So since I most recently added this example of Ursula from Long Dog Yarn in the base Merino DK, that's what's up here first. Now, when I mentioned that I highly recommend you select the closest color, that's for this sort by your stash feature. So as I've mentioned, this is sorted with the most recent date added first. But if I click on this, I can also sort by purchase date, by weight, by color, most yardage, least yardage, most views, and also by name alphabetically here at the top. If I select color, I can see that all of the colors are grouped together, and even though the Ursula yarn that I just logged doesn't have a picture, it's grouped in with the other purple skeins in my stash. So I really like this feature of logging your stash on Ravelry. There are a lot of other benefits that I'm going to go over in future videos, but in the meantime, you now have the tools to add things to your stash so you can stay virtually organized when planning your projects and looking at what yarn options you may have. So I hope that's helpful. Happy knitting, happy stashing, and I'll see you later.